way back in 2005, where the whole premise is that humanity's evolution is hitting a weird fork in the road. Instead of getting smarter, like all those sci-fi flicks love to predict, people are actually getting dumber. Yeah, humanity's at the top of the food chain, so there's nowhere to go but down. And boy, do we go down hard. So, we meet Corporal Joe Bowers, a chill Army librarian who's just coasting, dreaming of staying behind his desk until retirement. He's your average Joe, pun intended. One day, his bosses come knocking with this big mysterious experiment they want him to join. Joe's not thrilled, but orders are orders, so he's got to roll with it. Next, we're whisked into a hush-hush meeting with some top military brass. General Collins lays it all out. They've got this fancy new human hibernation pod that can freeze people for forever. The idea? Preserve the best of the best at their peak and wake them up when the world needs heroes. They picked Joe for this because he's the most average dude in the military. No family, no complications. For the other test subject, they need a woman, but there's no perfect match in the ranks. So Collins, in a move that raises eyebrows, picks Rita, a prostitute. He flashes some awkward photos of him partying with Rita's manager, Upgrade, and the room gets real uncomfortable, real fast. He wraps up by saying Joe and Rita are getting sealed into these pods tomorrow for a year-long test, and everyone in the room better keep their lips sealed because this is top-secret stuff. The next day, Joe and Rita are chilling in a waiting room. Joe, trying to break the ice, asks Rita what sector she's from. Not wanting to spill that she's a working girl, Rita plays it cool and says she's a painter. Soon, they're hooked up to IVs and slid into these high-tech hibernation pods. Rita's freaking out, trying to bolt, but Joe's like, relax. The scientist got this. It's just a year, and with that, they're sealed inside. But here's where it gets messy. Officer Collins gets busted for running a prostitution ring, and guess who's the ringleader? Yup, Upgrade. Both get locked up, and with them gone, nobody's left to babysit the pods. The military base shuts down after the scandal, and the building with Joe and Rita's pods, straight up demolished. The two are left snoozing in their pods as years pile up. Meanwhile, the world outside is going to hell in a handbasket. Humans are evolving dumber at a terrifying pace. Intelligence charts are nosediving. People hope science or genetic engineering might fix it, but the brightest minds are wasting their time on dumb stuff. By the year 2505, the population's exploded, and nobody can handle basic problems like trash pickup. Garbage just stacks up for centuries, leading to the Great Garbage Avalanche of 2505. One day, a massive trash landslide sends Joe's pod crashing into some random dude's house. Joe stumbles out, dizzy and confused, and meets Frito Pendejo, who's glued to his TV watching bizarre shows. Frito's couch has a built-in toy before kicking him out the window. Joe steps outside and is like, whoa, everything's changed in just a year. Except, plot twist, it's not 2005 anymore, it's 2505. He runs into some folks on the street who talk in grunts and slang. Joe can understand them, but when he talks normally, they throw slurs at him and chase him off. Feeling woozy, Joe heads to a nearby hospital. At the reception, he tries explaining he's from the army, but the woman just smashes a random button on her desk. A robotic voice tells him to head to the diagnostic area. Thirsty, Joe hits up a water fountain, but it's pumping out some energy drink called Brondo instead. When he asks a guy nearby where to get actual water, the dude laughs, saying water's for toilets. Turns out, in this world, everyone uses Brondo for everything. In the diagnostic area, Joe's told to shove plugs in his mouth, ear, and other places. The health worker screws up which plug goes where, and Joe's grossed out but powers through. He gets sent to a doctor who answers every health question with kick ass and slaps him with a $5 billion bill, calling him retarded. That's when Joe spots the date 2505 on the bill in a magazine. He's like, no way. But a glance out the window confirms it. The city's a mess. Buildings tied together with ropes. Garbage everywhere. Then the doctor notices Joe doesn't have a citizen tattoo on his wrist and freaks out. Joe bolts as the doctor calls the cops for unpaid bills. A narrator chimes in, Joe's woken up to a world in chaos. The economy's tanked. A dust bowl's wiped out food supplies. And the top movie in the country is literally called Ass. Just 90 minutes of someone's backside sweeping the Oscars. Joe checks it out and is dumbfounded. That night he gets arrested for being unscannable and hauled to court. His lawyer? Frito Pendejo, the same guy from earlier. Frito mocks him, and the whole courtroom laughs as Joe tries to explain his situation sensibly. The judge doesn't care, declares him guilty, and sends him to jail. Meanwhile, Rita's pod finally pops open. She's trying to call up Grayed, her manager and boyfriend, but the phone demands $2,000 to connect. A guy approaches her, and she scams him for cash. Back to Joe. He's at an automated tattoo station where citizens get their ID tattoos. The machine asks his name, but Joe, still confused, rambles about not knowing what's going on. The machine mishears and tattoos "not sure" on his wrist. Everyone starts calling him that. Then he takes an aptitude and IQ test, acing basic math while others can't even name shapes. He's sent to prison but quickly realizes everyone around him is painfully stupid. So he tells a guard he's supposed to be released today. The guard, not the sharpest tool, lets him walk. Alarms blare and cops chase him, but Joe slips away and ends up back at Frito's place. Joe's convinced someone must have invented a time machine in the last 500 years and begs Frito for help finding one. Frito's not interested until Joe promises him $8 billion. Frito caves, saying he knows where the time machine is. Just then, cops knock on the door, and Joe and Frito escape through the window. They grab a car and run into Rita, who's still scamming that same guy. She hops in, worried Upgrade will come after her for owed money, clueless that he's long dead. As they drive, Joe's wrist tattoo gets scanned, alerting the police. Their car's battery dies, and a mob starts fighting nearby. Joe, Frito, and Rita ditch the car and run, aiming for the time machine. They head to Costco, now a massive trade hub where Joe claims he studied law. While waiting for the metro, Rita hits the bathroom. Joe's wrist gets scanned again, and the place lights up with alerts about a criminal. The metro arrives. Frito jumps on, but Joe waits for Rita and gets nabbed by the cops. This time, though, he's not taken to prison. He's brought to the White House. There, President Camacho and his secretaries mock him, expecting a big-brain genius. Turns out, Joe's prison IQ test blew everyone away. He's the smartest guy they've ever seen. Camacho names him the new Secretary of the Interior, declaring him the world's smartest man. At the House of Representatives, Camacho announces Joe, a.k.a. Mr. Not Sure, will fix the food shortage and dust storms. He even promises to pardon Joe's prison sentence if he pulls it off. In a cabinet meeting, the secretaries demand Joe say something smart. He spouts some random jargon, and they eat it up. Joe asks Frito to sketch a map to the time machine while he distracts the others. Later, Joe takes everyone to a field where crops should be growing and calls for Rita, thinking she might help. Frito slips him the map, but it's just a useless line. Joe notices they're watering crops with Brondo, which is killing them. He holds a meeting and suggests using water instead. The secretaries think it's a terrible idea. So Joe, fed up, says he talked to the plants and they want water. Everyone buys it. Turns out Brondo's been salting the soil, causing dust storms and dead crops. So Joe's fix is legit. Things go smoothly for a bit, but then Brondo's stock tanks, leaving half the population jobless. Riots break out, and Joe's hauled to court, found guilty, and sentenced to rehabilitation, a death match where a criminal drives a tiny car while a massive truck tries to crush them, all for a cheering crowd. Joe's taken to the arena, and Rita, bummed, heads back to the White House with Frito, planning to find the time machine. The rehabilitation's broadcast live. Joe's dodging the death truck when Rita spots a rose growing outside. She realizes Joe's water plan worked and gets Frito to film the crops. She bribes a cameraman, storms the control room, and broadcasts the footage on the arena's big screen. President Camacho sees it, stops the execution, and pardons Joe to wild cheers. Everyone ends up at a White House frat party. Rita decides she loves this dumb future and wants to stay. Joe's shocked, but respects her choice. They say goodbye, but before he can leave, Camacho calls him on stage and names him vice president. The crowd's hopeful stares convince Joe to stay in 2505. Someone calls the time machine a dumb ride, and Frito shows Joe it's just a kiddie attraction, not a real machine. Months later, Joe's elected president marries Rita and becomes the first lady. They have 3 kids, dubbed the smartest in the world. Under Joe's leadership, a new era begins, with hope that humanity might just get smart again.